tonight we're glad that you guys are joining us on our Thursday night weekly meetings. And if this is your first time, welcome out joining us on our STUMO night. We'd love to be a resource to you guys, helping you guys move forward in your faith. And so, hey, my name is Tommy, and I just been working here the last 3 years with STUMO at K-State, and just love to help college students move forward in their faith and help them figure out what does it mean to have a relationship with God. And so we got hit tonight. We are continuing our series of Ask Me a Question, and tonight is, does faith even work? Is the question that we're going to be tackling. But one thing you guys need to know about me is, like, I love like those random YouTube videos that say like, hey, increase your bicep size in just 20 days. I'm like all over that kind of stuff. Or like those like random Instagram ads where it says like, man, this brand new product, it'll work, it'll do this. Or when you like walk into a store, they let you try out a product. I love that kind of stuff. I'm a huge sucker for it. So I've tried a lot of different things in my life. And so this first one you guys maybe have seen, if you go back to my slides, that first one there. And so one of the Plasti Dip. Have you guys ever heard of Plasti Dip before? And you guys used this before? So Plasti Dip, it kind of became big. It's like a tacky spray can. And they used it on cars. It kind of really became popular on spraying on the rims of car tires. And you do like multiple different coats on it, and you can roll it off if you don't like it. And so I love black rims on cars, and so I tried it out, and I painted my rims black on my truck. And it's been like this the last 2 years, looks phenomenal. I would highly suggest it if you guys are wanting black rims. It's just $5 for one can of plastic. It's awesome. I love it. It truly, truly does work. Another thing that I've tried recently, so you know those like little stands in the middle of a mall where they're like wanting you to come try out all these new products? I love those. And so I'm in the middle of a mall one time out in Southern California, and this guy's like, hey, come here. I was like, let me clean your shoe. Okay, sweet, yeah, you want to clean my shoe? I put my shoe up on his knee, and he cleans it with the shoe mat. And it made my shoe immaculate. And I was like, I'll take it. How much? It was 20 bucks, I bought it. I still to this day clean my shoes with it. I clean my hats with it. Phenomenal product. It truly does work. Another thing, I haven't tried this yet, but I don't know if you guys have seen these things, but it's a teeth whitener. And so this is called the Eye Smile. And basically, on that mouthpiece, you put some like clear gel on it. And then this this Blu-ray light comes out. It's supposed to make your teeth white. Haven't tried it yet. I really want to see if it works. And this is the reason why. This is my wife, Rachel, and that's little Titus up there. But Rachel has like the most perfect white teeth ever. And I don't. So it makes me really self-conscious when we take family pictures and like my teeth clearly aren't as white as hers. It kind of makes me feel a little self-conscious. But I really want to try this. If any of you guys have tried it, let me know. I'd love to hear how it went. But the most recent one that I've tried, I saw this little YouTube video, and they said, hey, you can clean off and completely restore your headlights on your car if you just do 3 different levels of grit paper, of sandpaper, and just keep spraying water on it the whole time. Because last time I went in my car, I took my car and they're like, hey, it might be like $300 to replace your headlights. I'm like, I'm not going to pay $300. So I tried this on YouTube. And so this is what my headlight had looked like. A ton of oxidation had built up, a ton of road gunk is all over it. And so I did a little trick. It took about maybe 20 minutes on each headlight. And this is what it turned out doing. It cost me $5. You went for the grit paper and I had to go buy a little spray bottle. Completely restored my headlights. But so again, I love trying all these things. I love testing if things work or not. And I feel like a lot of us in life, where we're asking this question, does this work? And throughout every single day in life, we're typically thinking that, whether we actually recognize it. Big thing right now, is Antonio Brown going to work at the Patriots? How do we feel about that, fellas? Yes? No? Is it going to work out at the Patriots? Unfortunately, I feel like he might work out. The Patriots are one of those teams that I feel like can really make it happen. Is it going to work or not? Who knows? We'll find out. Okay, ladies, these like blue light glasses, do they actually block like blue rays? Yes? No? I actually see some. Personally, I think it's just a way for you ladies to like want to like look trendy and cute. But hey, if it works, that's great. Fellas, another thing that you may not realize it, but when you guys are calling a play in your intramural football game, the question that's going through your mind is this play going to work? We hope it works, and so we're going to call this play. That's actually going through your mind when you're playing your intramural flag football game. Next one, ladies or guys, essential oils. Do these things actually work? Really? They cure your headaches, they help you sleep. I don't buy that, but hey, if they've been working for you, that's awesome. I don't know if I believe that. whether we realize it or not, we make decisions in life, big or small, based upon if things work. You ever thought about that before? We make decisions in life based upon if things work or not, and if it does, we go for it, we commit to it, we buy it, right? Whether it's a product or anything in life. And I think when it comes to our spiritual lives, maybe at some point in our life, maybe we've had that question and have felt, hey, does this faith thing even work? Does this whole relationship with God thing even work? Should I even consider pursuing my faith during my college years and even for my life? Maybe a lot of us have been in here, and maybe at some point in our life we've had that thought and that question. Does this faith thing even work? And that's our question for tonight as we continue our series of asking the question. And so we're going to dive into a story tonight, but what I love about the Bible is that God has recorded different events, different interactions of people, stories of people as they have interacted with Jesus, and we get to read about them today. And the more and more that I have read the Bible, the thing that I love so much about the Bible is that what we think and feel today in 2019 is exactly what people felt and thought back then. And tonight we're going to read a story where a woman is thinking this thought, does this faith thing work? And we're going to see how it plays out for her. But before we do that, I think it's really important that we define what is faith. What is this faith thing that we're talking about tonight? Because sometimes I think faith, we think that it's just kind of this emotional feeling that goes on in our mind. That's faith. But really, there on your handout, just in general, faith is getting to a place of trusting something and results in action. Faith is getting to a place of trusting something and it results in action. When you think about it, faith is always in something. There's always an object of faith. Like tonight, you guys all just sat down in a chair 15 minutes ago. Your faith is in the chair and the result is you sitting down, right? Or you telling a secret to a friend. Your faith is in the person and the result is you telling them the secret. About 4 years ago, my faith, when I was dating Rachel, my faith was in her as a person who she was. And the result was me buying a really expensive ring and draining my bank account and getting down on one knee and asking her to marry. That was the result of my faith in who she was as a person. But tonight, so when we're talking about this idea of does this faith thing work, what I'm talking about is our faith is in Jesus. Jesus being the object of our faith, that He did die on a cross for our sin, for the entire world. And the result would be us committing our lives to following Him and having eternal life. That's what we're talking about today. Does this whole faith thing work? Does committing to Jesus even work? So tonight we're going to read a story. We're reading a story about a woman who gets to interact with Jesus, and she's feeling the same exact thing that a lot of us are feeling today. Does this faith thing work? Should I even go for this and trust my life to Jesus? And so we're going to read it up on the screen here if you guys will read it with me. This story in the book of Mark, chapter 5, verses 24 through 34. So let's read it together. So Jesus, He's traveling many different towns. He says this: a large crowd followed and pressed around Him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind Him in the crowd and touched His cloak, because she thought, if I just touch His clothes, I'll be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she had been freed from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from Him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? You see the people crowding against you, His disciples answered, and yet you can ask who touched me. But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at His feet, trembling with fear, told the whole truth. And He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your sufferings. So tonight, when we look at this story, when we think of this question, does faith work? It does. But it all comes back to the person of Jesus. And we're going to dive into the story. So a lot happens that there's so much going on. Again, this woman, she's been bleeding constantly for 12 years straight. Every single day has a terminal illness of bleeding. 12 years straight, nonstop, every single day. And back in that time, in that culture, man, these types of people, if you have an illness or a disease, you're a social outcast. You're not allowed to be a part of society. You can't participate in things of society. You're not allowed to go out into crowds and be around people. And most likely, what we can probably insinuate from her story, this woman most likely quarantined herself in her home. Because she's ill. She has a terminal illness of bleeding. She's probably quarantined in her home. But what's exciting is when we go to verse 27, it all changes. A fork in the road is for her life. Because she's sitting in her home and she hears about Jesus. And everything changes for her. The fork in the road in life, she now has two options. Either one, I can just stay in my home and continue to suffer from my disease. Or two, I can step out in faith. I can go and leave my home and I can go run to Jesus and see if this is the guy that can actually heal me. And I'm just trying to put myself in her shoes right there at that comma. And what is she feeling in that moment? She's asking, does this faith thing even work? Just like all of us are asking here. Is this whole faith thing in Jesus going to work if I actually trust Him? But what do we look? So I'm picturing her. She's probably in her home. She probably gets off the couch and she's probably standing right at the edge of the inside of her door, hand on the knob, ready to turn it and open up the door. I'm going to go out in the crowd, weave through them all, and see what happens when I interact with Jesus. I think that's what she's doing. And obviously, we go throughout the rest of the story and it's history. And we see what happened when she interacted with Jesus and she was healed. She simply touched His jacket and immediately her bleeding stopped. And so the question is, does faith work? And how do we know? I think there's two things from this story tonight about this woman, that how we know that faith in Jesus actually works. And our first one on your handout is that Jesus declares it does. We go into verse 34 and He tells her straight up, He says, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." He kind of just looks at her straight in the eye and says, hey, you have gone to doctor after doctor after doctor. You've spent every single dollar to your name trying to get healed. Nothing has worked. But you made a choice to place your faith in me. He says, you're healed. He declares it to her. Your faith has healed you. And notice that He doesn't say, hey, you go into church this amount of times healed you. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, hey, praying this really quick prayer, run a random time to God, and it's all good. He doesn't say that. That's not what healed her. It's not, hey, you've been a really good moral person for the last handful of years. You're good to go. That's not what He says. He says two words. He says, it's your faith that healed you. And the statement that Jesus makes to her tells us today what works. It's faith in Him, who He is, and what He's capable of doing. But the next question is, Tommy, those are just words in a book called the Bible. How can I trust them? Can I trust what Jesus says? That's the next question. Can I really trust what Jesus says? And I think when we come back to it, oftentimes the who says it often carries more weight than what they actually said. Who says that often carries more weight than what was actually said. And we have to figure out, well, what is true of this guy named Jesus? It's kind of like this. Say you're learning to you want to learn how to call plays in football. Are you going to trust Bill Belichick, or are you going to trust your 7th grade JV football coach? This is literally what came up when I Googled 7th grade JV football coach. This guy right here. Who are you going to trust? Right? There's something to the name of Bill Belichick. You know, say you're studying for a chemistry test coming up. Are you going to trust the tutor, or are you going to trust the guy that sleeps through class every single day? Who says it often carries more weight than what is actually said. And so we need to figure out, and can we trust what Jesus says? What's true about Him? And when we look in the Bible of what God describes about Jesus, He says this in Hebrews 12:2. He says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Can we trust Jesus? And I think when we look at this, we can. He says He is the author of faith. He has designed how faith works. He has set the course on how this whole relationship with God stuff works. What actually heals you? What gives you fulfillment? What gives you life? What gives you satisfaction? He tells us Jesus is the author of it. He created it and designed it. We can trust this guy named Jesus. He's the author. So when Jesus says your faith has healed you, I think we can take his words to the bank and cash it. Because he's the author of it. He created it. And when I think about when someone's words carry weight, I think about this one time when my son Titus, he was still bottle feeding, really young, and I'm in the living room and my wife Rachel's in the kitchen and Titus is just going crazy, crying his brains out. I'm like, oh, hey, I got this, I'll be a good dad right now. And I'm like, hey, he just wants to play a little bit more, and so I'm trying to play with him. Keeps bawling his eyes out. Rachel's like, hey, just give him some milk. I'm like, no. He just wants to cuddle a little bit more, and so I hold him, try and cuddle him, bawling his eyes out, still just kicking and screaming everywhere. Rachel's in the kitchen, hey, Tommy, just give him some milk. No, I think he's just got a wet diaper, let me change his diaper really quick. Still going crazy, still going nuts. It's just, Tommy, just give him the milk. And so I'm like, okay. So I go over to the kitchen, get the bottle of milk, give it to him, done. Ball game. Peace. Quiet. It worked. In that moment, I'm thinking, why would I not listen to Titus's mom? She has been there every single second, minute, hour of his life up until that point. She knows how he operates, what his cries mean. She knows when he needs different things. I'm like, why didn't I just listen to Rachel? She knew what would heal Titus in that moment. I think it's the same thing when it comes to what Jesus tells us, what will actually heal us in life, and what will give us satisfaction. He tells us, and he declares it. And he says it's our faith that heals us. I think we can trust him on that. Not only does Jesus declare it, but Jesus proves it does. How do we know faith works? Jesus declares it does, and Jesus proves that it does. If we go back to verse 29, it says, immediately her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. Does faith work? We don't need to go much further. The proof is in the pudding. And some of you guys might be sitting here tonight and thinking, hey, Tom, that's a really great story, but that's just one instance. And you're right, that is one instance, because in life, when we're trying to figure out, hey, does something work or not, we want multiple rounds of evidence and proof that it works, don't we? Like think about just everything in life in general. When you guys are like thinking about buying a new phone, the next iPhone or the next Samsung Galaxy or whatever, what do you guys do? You watch every single YouTube video about it, you read all the reviews about it, you ask all your friends who have the phone, hey, how is it? Do you like it? We're trying to build evidence that it works. Next semester, when you guys enroll into your classes, what do you guys do? You look at who the professor is going to be. Should I take it at this time of the day or this time of the day? There's two different professors. And you start asking everyone, hey, have you had this professor before? Have you had this professor before? You immediately go to rateyourprofessor.com and you see the reviews on your professor, don't you? Why? Because you're wanting to see if it works or not. Last year, I was wanting to buy a new duffel bag for my travel and things like that. I watched probably 25 to 30 YouTube videos on this duffel bag, describing all three pockets of it. That's it. It's like, what YouTube videos describe three pockets of a bag? But I watched it. They talk about all the different things you can pack in it, different things that they've used it for, different trips, and I ended up buying it because it worked. Out of all these different videos that I watched. But that's how we operate in life. We want multiple instances of proof. And when it comes to Jesus, it's not just this story of the bleeding woman. All throughout the Bible, Mark 10, a blind man comes to Jesus, and he takes away his blindness, and he tells him, your faith healed you. Same thing that he tells this bleeding woman. In Luke 7, a woman comes to Jesus. She washes his feet with her tears and her hair, and he says, your faith has healed you. Same exact thing. In Luke 17, 10 different men who have a disease of leprosy come to Jesus. He heals every single one of them. And he says to all 10 of them, he says, your faith has healed you. It's all throughout the Bible. And it's not just all the Bible stories where faith has healed people. Jesus is still proving it today. Even when I think about my own life personally, 7 years ago, I come into college. I'm pursuing the Division I athlete life. I'm pursuing popularity. I'm pursuing the hookup culture with girls. I'm pursuing the party scene. I was addicted to pornography for so many years. And I would describe my life as I'm just trying to chase wind, trying to find purpose. But spring break of my freshman year, I started reading the Bible with one of my friends, and for the first time, he helped me understand what it meant to place my faith in Jesus. 2 weeks go by, and I tell my friend, hey, I'm ready to place my trust in Jesus. Everything changed, and I wasn't just chasing wind anymore. I finally had purpose and satisfaction for my life and what I wanted to give my life to. And it's not just me. There's so many of you guys here in this room. Maybe it's the person that you came with. It's the guy or girl in your sorority or your fraternity or your dorm floor, friends on campus. And it's because they've placed their faith in Jesus. They're secure in life. They have a confidence in who they are. They're not chasing all these different things that the world has to offer. They know exactly the purpose for their life and what they're getting into. And so many of you guys here in this room, where it's because of their faith. And one thing that we love doing every single week here is just hearing from one of you guys. And Quentin Quell, he's going to come up here, and he has experienced that faith heals you, and it gives you life and satisfaction. So go ahead and welcome up Quentin Quell.
Hey guys, like Tommy said, my name is Quentin Quell, and a little bit about me. I was born in Iowa and then moved and grew up in Overland Park. But growing up, faith was a pretty big concern of mine, and even I would say a priority. But as a teenager, I began to just prioritize things ahead of it, and just the things that I was concerned about, really kind of put faith aside. And even began to kind of feel the consequences of doing that. And, it was really important to just kind of keep in sight, what was important. So, I remember deciding on going to K-State and joining a fraternity called Lambda Chi. And there was a guy in that house named Dallas. And he was really living out his faith kind of in the midst of everything going on. And I just remember it was such a just remarkable thing for me to see someone my age, living out like a genuine and a sincere faith in Christ. It was something I was really just kind of blown away by. And as I got to know him, he began to kind of share what that faith in Christ looked like, and even just how it had changed his life for the better. And I saw kind of like a joy and contentment about this guy, more so than others. And it was really for the first time I began to just kind of contemplate and even investigate, what this might actually look like, and does this actually work? And then I remember, the summer of my freshman year was a pretty significant time for the development of my faith. I remember it was kind of a time, a little disillusioned after freshman year, really didn't have a foundation to fall back on, when problems happened. And I remember, Dallas gave me this book called Unsatisfied. And it talked about just kind of the complete satisfaction that comes with a relationship with Christ. And I remember reading that and just being blown away by it. And then even later in that summer, I got a pretty serious illness, even a little brush with death. And then even later, I went to Yellowstone and saw God's beauty kind of in nature. And more importantly, with all these things happening, I still kind of continue to look in and investigate into that faith more. And it was cool because God began to use, all those things that happened, freshman year, that summer, to kind of draw me kind of back into a relationship with Him and even change the direction of my life. So coming back sophomore year, I began to go to Bible studies, began to read books like More Than a Carpenter and Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And then finally, for the first time, I actually opened up the Bible for myself. And as I was reading it, I just couldn't believe, kind of the authority, that it spoke with, and just the relevance, like Tommy was saying, the relevance, in our lives today. And just reading it more and more, it was almost like I got hit by a lightning bolt. And it was like the analogy goes, it's like, once there was, darkness, now there was light. And just reading it more and more, I began to trust and believe it more. And even the person, that was me a year and a half ago isn't the same guy standing up here right now. So, even before, fully deciding to trust in Christ, make that faith to follow him, for the end of my days. I remember like all my problems I would have, growing up were like the end of the world, like the end all be all. And what I was even concerned about, what I used to just be greatly concerned about, wasn't even a concern at all. And a lot of this changed, by just trusting Christ, that He has a plan for your life. He gives you a purpose and direction. He gives you a confidence and even hope for the future, and as well as even a peace of mind, which is especially needed in college, and even the world we live in today. But most importantly, you get this kind of joy and you get this kind of fulfillment, and you get to share this kind of, hey, this faith thing works with your college friends, and you get to go back home and share it with your friends from high school and even your family. And it's like when you experience a certain joy and just a goodness in your life, you want to share that with everyone. And that's even what's been really cool just about my testimony, just getting the opportunity to serve, Christ, and just how that faith has worked in my life. And even a good quote that I'm going to end with is one by a philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard. He says, "Faith is the highest passion in a human being. Many in every generation may not come that far, but none can go beyond it." Thank you guys.
It's just cool to see just how God has really honored your faith when you really trusted Jesus. So, thanks again, Quinn, for sharing your story. Hey, so as we're kind of wrapping up tonight, how do we know that faith works? This whole thing called faith, this whole relationship with God, this whole, am I going to follow Christ? How do we know that it works? And I think from the story of the bleeding woman, Jesus declares that it works. And He's the author of faith. He's the perfecter of it. And I think we can trust Him in that. And He also proves it. So many different stories in history, so many different stories now on the college campus at Kansas State, even beyond college, we see Him continue to prove that it's faith in Jesus that really does give us life. So tonight, I tried answering the question for you guys tonight, does this faith thing even work? But I have a question for you guys tonight, and it's, which part of the story in Mark 5 about the bleeding woman, where are you at in that story? In the first spot, it's like, hey, maybe you're at the part where you're just like her, and you have gone to and are currently going to doctor after doctor after doctor trying to find healing. And it's not just these quote-unquote doctors, it's the things of the world and culture around it. And maybe you're just seeking out popularity. Maybe it's like you're seeking out a relationship with a guy or a girl, and you're putting all of your hope into that person. Maybe it's you've been trying to create this identity of who you are on Instagram, and it's not fulfilling you. Maybe it's you've been giving your life to the hookup and party culture of college so far, and it's not bringing you satisfaction. We might be that place in the story of the bleeding woman where we are going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and we aren't finding life. And if that is you, would you just take time to consider what Jesus says about what does heal you, and what He says about faith in Him and who He is? And maybe you're at a place in the story where you're the woman and you have gotten off the couch, you were in your home, you're at the edge of the door, and your hand is right by the doorknob, and you're about to open up the door and go trust in Jesus. Maybe that's where you're at. You're thinking about following Christ. There's maybe some fear and some nerves, and what are other people going to think about me? Maybe that's where you're at. And if that is you, would you consider open the door, really trust Him that He does heal you? And maybe you're the person in the story, maybe you're the part where she actually went out and she trusted Jesus and she interacted with Him and placed her faith in Him, and she's healed. Maybe that's where you're at. Maybe you have trusted Christ and you're following Him. And if that is you, would you just consider, just be devoted to helping others be healed by placing their faith in Jesus, if that's where you're at tonight. We are all in all different places when it comes to our faith. And that's what I love about our student nights. Wherever you're at, what does it look like to move forward? And though all of us are at very, very different places, I think we're all similar in the fact that we face the same reality that this bleeding woman faced. And some of you guys might be here like, hey Tommy, what on earth does this bleeding woman story have to do with me? And I totally get that. But I love this story so much because this woman is a physical representation of what is actually taking place in all of us spiritually. See, this woman had a terminal illness and she was suffering because of it. And it's her faith that actually healed her. But she's a physical representation of us because all of us are suffering from a terminal illness because of our sin. All of us were born into this world where we live lives against God and what He desires for us to do, and we sin against Him. And that's the spiritual condition of us when we are all born. And because of that, we are in a separated relationship with God, and none of us have a chance to go to heaven by nature. But that is why Jesus came to earth and He died on a cross, so that if we place our faith in Him, what He did on the cross, He died for the sin of the world, and if we would trust Him and commit our lives to following Him, we will have eternal life. What does this bleeding woman have to do with us? She's the physical representation of what is taking place in all of us spiritually. And I think in that story, we're in one of those three places where she was at. So that was the question tonight. Does this faith thing even work? That was the question. A really short answer is yes, when it's in Jesus. And so that was the question tonight. But I want to ask you a question. Are you going to place your faith in Jesus? Because we all have that choice. So hey, as we wrap up tonight, there's a couple of questions on here. They're also on your handout. But with the folks next to you, discuss these couple of questions as we wrap up. And the MCs will wrap us up for tonight.